Hello, and welcome to another episode of Tales from a Professional Nerd. My name is Bryan Steele, and I will be your nerd today, and every other day that you watch one of these silly little shows. So, it's been a weird week. We'll leave it at that. Um, Played some D&D. We're having a good time with my rhythm and flow monk. Officially, I can start dishing out some pretty significant damage if I dance the right way for a long enough time. I can start clubbing people pretty hard. In our Curse of Strahd game, however, we just repeatedly are getting our butt kicked, just over and over and over again every time we get into a fight. The dungeon master for that particular game is my best friend Nick, and he does not pull punches. As far as like if you get yourself into a situation, like he might have the monsters not do their full attack, or maybe not. They won't all just gang up on one guy unless it's just that's the only guy they can get to. But overall, if we make a wrong decision, he is not going to stop us from putting our head in that noose and possibly walking off, whatever short thing that we were standing on. So in last night's game, we went into a room where we thought this was just a simple, almost like a cash and carry exercise. We walk in, we tell the guy, give us the bones, and the guy's like, yeah, they're upstairs, but don't go up there, there's vampires up there. And we were like, yeah, okay, yeah, we're a bunch of third level characters, there's no way that we're gonna go up against vampires. So we get up there and we open up these boxes. Spoilers for people who haven't played Strahd yet, or the Curse of Strahd. We open up some boxes, and out come these uh, lesser vampires. And in all honesty, like, we were so kind of gobsmacked that happened that it was just like, wait, what? Nick, we're third level, man. We're third level. What are you doing? And he's like, you guys did this. We almost had a guy die. We fought for a little while and then just booked. We were like, nope, this is not the right thing. As soon as we found out that we couldn't like smash the windows and let in the sunlight, because in Ravenloft sunlight is so muted and cloud covered that the vampires are like, it barely sucks. We were like, nope, our only real uh, natural weapon against them. No, it wasn't going to work. We were out. We're like, get out of here. So our game session ended with us basically all just fleeing, running in different directions. Multiple people down to almost no hit points. I think I have two regular hit points and three temporary hit points because of the heroism spell, which is going to go away in like 6 rounds. Um, oh yeah, no, it's rough. It is a rough thing that we're dealing with, and I'm hoping that maybe next session we either figure out something a little more level appropriate for us to do, or we get on with the main quest and try and get past a couple of those milestone efforts to try and level up a little bit, because wow, is it rough. Yeah, so there's that. Officially got started on the new the overall plot outline for the new Shadowrun novel. Super excited about that one, because I get to do some things in the Shadowrun world that have not been done before, and that is always something that makes me giddy with excitement. I mentioned a couple of episodes ago where I was talking about the power of fiction, um, where you get to invent new things, and people come up, people will later on maybe base a character or base a plot line or something off of something you've written. So I'm super excited about this plot line, not just because I get to go to a few places that are not very well illustrated or described in Shadowrun, so they've been kind of glossed over, so I can kind of get deeper into it. But also, I get to kind of throw back the curtain on on something that has been part of Shadowrun for a very, very long time, but always used as adversaries, always used as bad guys, always used as though the monster of the week or like the mini boss. So I'm hoping to be able to add a little extra life to this. So maybe the next time someone uses one of these in their games, that they go, okay, they don't have to be X, they can be Y. So we'll see. I'm excited about that. So I don't know if I mentioned my two big dogs, my big boys, Bruce and John. They sadly came back heartworm positive a few months ago from their checkup, and so they've been going through the treatment to have those little bastards removed. And they just came back home today from a short vet visit, where they got their first real big dose of the anti-worm stuff. So for the next couple of weeks, they got to lay low and chill out, and we have to try and make sure that they lay low and chill out when there's also a puppy in training in the house. So plus two cats that like to antagonize the dogs. So that's a thing. I wish I could say anything better about that, but I can't. Work wise, finished a really cool section of stuff for Spycraft. Got that sent into the guys. Power Rangers is plugging along. Got the okay to do some more books for Renegade. My relationship with Renegade is really coming together nicely, and I'm enjoying it. I can't talk about what they are, obviously, but I am psyched that I'm going to be able to put the proverbial pen to paper on these topics, and in these genres and under these IPs. So that's going to be cool. And as soon as I can tell you more about them, I will, obviously. Let's see, what else? Last week, this has nothing to do with work whatsoever. Last week, there was a local, auction house sale thing for a bunch of kitchen stuff. I'm a foodie. I've mentioned this before. I love cooking. I love to make extravagant meals and stuff for my family, even if sometimes they don't appreciate it. What are you doing? I'm adding salt and ketchup to this. It's already flavored. Not enough. So, aside from that, I love to cook, and anytime I get an opportunity to expand my kitchen, I try. For a lot of my birthdays and Christmas and stuff, I get a lot of kitchen stuff for for presents. But as soon as Natalie saw this thing for a kitchen, basically like a kitchen estate sale, and I'm like a kitchen store estate sale. That's hard to say. And I was like, well, I'll go. And it was like cash and carry only. And I was like, all right, if I go in there with too much money in my pocket, I'm gonna be really mad at myself. So I went in with just an X amount of money. I was like, all right, I'm only gonna go in there, and I ended up getting about $500 worth of stuff for like $80. So I'm super psyched about that. They didn't have the one thing I wanted to go in there for, so I still need to try and buy my tiny whisks. I can't get them for the life of me. But I did get an amazing bevel edge nonstick icon pan and a gourmet level wool stuff meat carving knife. So excited. One of these days I'll do, I don't know, when I feel a little more comfortable showing the rest of me on camera, because I'm super out of shape right now. Thank you, pandemic. I would love to do a Tales from the Professional Nerd's Kitchen episode, and make something for you guys, or make something for us, for you guys while we're talking shop or whatever. I don't know. I think it'll be fun. We'll see. Let's see what else. Had a fantastic, had a good meeting with Alex from Warzone, and sent over a couple of pieces of new fiction to him. So that'll be exciting. I know it's stuff that eventually will end up in the books and things, but it's just one more step closer to us getting ready to be able to unveil and be set. We also had a really good discussion about how kind of like what's the big sort of hurdle we have left to get in with playtesting before we kind of, I don't want to say put it on autopilot because that's not right, but before we're as the rules are set and now we're just kind of coasting on making sure the units are good. Um, so we got I'm sure he's working up the final kind of playtest packet that goes out to all the playtesters. Um, and that will have those like last minute changes, the things that we were like, okay, all right, we're listening. Oh, hey, if you hear that, if it sounds suddenly, hopefully my microphone is smart enough to not pick up such a thing, because it is crazy cold in Indiana right now. I've got a space heater in the room. I thought I had turned it to please don't turn on while I'm recording. It's a special setting on my heater. But I must have instead had it set to go ahead and turn on, the noise won't bother them during my recording setting. Um, I mean, it's cold in here, so I'm okay with the heat, but hopefully it's not actually bothering you. You wonderful, wonderful viewers. Speaking of viewers, we my wife and I got a note in the mail today that or an email that someone is sending us something via UPS via the professional nerd. So I don't know what it is. I hope it's something cool, and I'll tell you about it next week. Whatever we end up getting, and if there's a name or anything, I occasionally I'll receive anonymous stuff, but if there's a name of who sent us gifties, I will absolutely give you a shout out on the show. But yeah, so it's been good. I painted. I've got a commission on my desk right now. As I look over to look at my commission, I've got a commission on my desk right now. That's about half done. I need to get that finished up. This last weekend, I went ahead and just because they were already halfway, I was like, I'm gonna get them finished. I did my convergence, convergence of domination or something like that. The new Necron 3-piece fortification that Cryptex can teleport around the board. I also got the new Cryptex Psychomancer, who is an amazing model. He's super cool. He's like almost all tentacles and upper body, and like his tentacles come together and form this sort of pixelated holographic screaming skull. While it's an amazing model, I won't lie, that sucked to put together. I had so much glue on my hands because it's got so many little tiny fiddly bits. There's been a new trend in Games Workshop models where there's several extra bits on the sprue that are like extra planing parts. So instead of, rather than having the guy's whole hand as part of the arm, it's arms a piece, the lower half of the hand is a piece, and then the fingers are a piece. It's very weird, especially knowing the technology that they have at their disposal. It seems very like a very strange idea and a strange practice to make these extra parts when they can just be like, put them together and then they're done, or have them as one single part to begin with. So yeah, putting the Psychomancer together was not fun. It was a chore. But now that he's together, I do think once I get these commissions off my desk, I might have like a Cryptek painting day, because I know also here real soon where we get the what's his name? One of the other Mancers. Not the Psychomancer, the Chronomancer. The Chronomancer is coming in the Kill Team box with a bunch of flayed ones, which should be a lot of fun because I actually need a handful more flayed ones. So I think me and my friend are going to split the Kill Team box, and I'll get the Necron stuff, and he'll get whatever the other half is. I actually don't even remember. But speaking of 40K, I so I'm gonna let you guys in on a little secret. Um, I have been working on something 40K related unofficially. This is nothing to, yeah, big bold letters. This has nothing to do with um, the Games Workshop as a company. They didn't ask me to do this. I just basically a few months ago I just got this feeling that I wanted to do something and take a shot, see what happens. And I started to basically put together a rule set for something. I don't want to until I hear back from a couple of people. I don't want to. I'm not going to actually tell you what it is yet. But it was a lot of work, a lot of work, and the rules chunk of my version of said codex ended up being like 117 pages, I think. And then now it's just basically all I have to do is add story pages, and there's a codex. This is a done deal. Um, so I shared it with some people. Now that since the rule section is done, I actually shared it with a couple of people, and overall, I got positive responses. They were like, "Man, this is really, really good." And, as professional looking as a Microsoft Word document can, without art, that sort of thing. And one person actually was like, you need to do something with this, and if GW doesn't take it, you should probably try and maybe sell it to another company because you've already got some really good ideas in here. And I was like, well, can't really. I'm not trying to sell this in the first place. I just wanted to make this, and if I could be so lucky as to have Games Workshop pick it up, I would give it to them for free. If only just to be like, I've left my mark on 40K, which is something I wanted to do since I became a game designer. Yeah, so it's been a crazy, like I said, it's been a crazy week. Lots of ups, lots of not really downs. We had a couple of rough days there because pandemic stress. We are starting to get to the point, combined with the rough weather, the cold weather, and the fact that we're all stuck inside and you can't even really go out for a walk. Without bundling all up and getting your feet wet. And for people like me who wear shorts pretty much year round, there's not a whole lot of going out walking for me. I just there was a tipping point earlier this week, and it caused a pretty big kerfuffle in the household. But we seem to be past that, and back to doing what we need to do and getting things worked out. Let's see, other highlight of the week. Oh, I did have one really cool thing that happened. I'm not going to embellish, or I'm not going to really go into it in great detail, but I did do some due diligence and some 21st century sleuthing, and helped my son meet via camera for the first time with one of his online VR friends, a girl from the UK. And they've hit it off, and they've been talking for weeks, just playing games and stuff. But there's a difference between a disembodied voice and actually being able to see and talk and have body language and whatever. So I was able to orchestrate that and get that set up, and that made me feel good as a dad, and it seemed like the kids were happy to get to actually meet each other. So I'm sure there will be more of that in the future, but that was the first time, and I felt pretty good about myself. That's probably a bright spot in the week, in all honesty. Let's see that, and I made a homemade bechamel sauce a couple nights ago, and even my kids liked it. And again, like I mentioned, there's a lot of times where I'll cook something and I'll look at them and go, "You guys don't have to have this. This one's kind of a grown-up taste. I'd like you to try it, but see what's up." And they both dug it and ate it, scarfed it down. So, in fact, actually, my son said, he's like, "That's really good." I'm like, "Who are you? You don't normally like sauce on anything." Let's see, what else? I think that's just about it. Just a lot of work stuff. Got some, did a little bit of playing. Um, yeah, I think that's about it. Now to the topic at hand. So I do want to show you this because this is what kind of spawned the topic. So today's topic of hate the player or don't hate don't hate the player, hate the game. Obviously an old saying, but for gamers, there's really that's or rather, I should say for dungeon masters or game masters, or if you're the kind of the alpha gamer that's running the game room, or invited everybody for board game day or whatever when you can, uh, it falls on your shoulders to kind of serve as the MC for the MC for the game. I'm gonna turn my light up a little because the sun is starting to go down, and we're starting to get dull in here, or get dim in here, and I don't want to turn the overhead light on because it has got this. I just changed the light bulbs in it, and it is bright, blindingly bright. So there we go. There's that. What was I saying? Talking about the shirt. So while my T-shirt sponsor, Armor Class 10, did not make this shirt, I want to make that abundantly clear. Although they are still my T-shirt sponsor, I'm wearing a different shirt this week because my wife got this on. I want to say she said T Fury, or possibly. Whichever one is the company that makes Unstable Unicorns. I don't remember. But so I did have to blank out a bad word because I don't want YouTube to flag me for it. But so it says, I believe. Oh, hang on, I'm gonna try and get it to actually read all the way. I believe you'll find that rule clearly spelled out on page FU. I'm the dungeon master. So she saw that. I mean, apparently it popped up in like one of her Facebook pages or whatever, and she was like, Dad's got to have that." And so she snagged it for me, and I told her I would wear it on the show, specifically with the idea that maybe a topic comes up that is poignant for a statement such as this. Because what this statement basically says is, don't fight with your dungeon master. In the case of like a D&D game or any other role-playing game where you've got a game master, a dungeon master, or a storyteller, or whatever, whoever's in charge, it's to say, maybe don't argue because there's a reason. My title for today's episode, the don't hate the player, hate the game, is kind of a misnomer. Obviously, if you've got a player invited to your table, the whole point is to hopefully. Oh my gosh! Yawn! What the heck? What the heck was that all about? Because the shining light like hit you with yawn. Time for coffee. So, it's obviously, when you invite someone over to your place, or to a game, or to a game store to play, or whatever, wherever you're getting your gaming in, whoever you're bringing to the table, unless it's like an open invite, sort of, open enrollment, I'm at the game store, anybody wants to play D&D, come sit down. These should be your friends, the other players, and I mean that insofar that, like, not just friends with you as the game master or the host or whatever. That's what I'm saying. I'm gonna use the term host for the rest of the episode. When I say host, I mean games workshop, games master, storyteller, DM, guy who owns the board game, whatever. Basically, the narrative boss, the person in charge of making sure that this thing happened. And we're going to call that the host. So, you want your table filled with people who are not only just friends with you, friends with the host. You want them also to be friends with each other, because they, or at least to the point where, at least like utter neutrality, because they don't know each other and they can build up to be friends. um, because there's something to be said for uh, kind of going into a situation and everybody already starting with a smile. Everybody already starting on the right foot of, hey, I'm getting to see my friends today and play a cool game. The difference being is that, and in some, I have seen in recent times where being part of the game group is more important than, I want to be part of the game. I'll play the game, even though that guy is part of the group. And then it ends up being like this constant snark fest, or a every time this person says something, that's just stupid. We're because these players, they weren't friends, they're not friendly, they aren't having a good time when it comes to each other. And then eventually that sometimes that will bleed into their in character stuff, like uh it's that whole thing where sometimes bad role players will say, well, it's what my character would do. Yeah, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you had to do it. And players that don't get along very quickly will have characters that don't get along. And when the chips fall, or when tensions are the highest, they're also almost always the first ones that'll backstab someone in the group. And then suddenly you've got inter-party conflict, or intra-party conflict. I think it's inter-party conflict. But yeah, so it's you want people to come to your table as friends, stay friends, and that goes 100% on the shoulders of the host, because even subconsciously, some of the people you invite are going to automatically view you as you're making the decisions. This is your house, this is your event, this is your game, or whatever. And they're going to, basically just follow your lead. And if your lead is gang up on this guy and make him feel like crap, or contradict the DM or contradict the rules as often as possible, because they can't stop you. These are things that will probably pretty quickly strain out the people who it'll send people packing, because if the people who are not there for the long haul, they're not your close friends, they're probably going to be like, I don't want to deal with this, and then they're going to stop playing, and then that leaves a completely different hole. In the case of like a board game or a card game night or something, if someone gets up and leaves, shrug. Even a gigantically long game of like Twilight Imperium, which I miss. I miss playing gigantic board games. Even something like that, if someone was really determined not to have that interact with them, they'll find a way. They'll find a way to circumvent that, and then that way it's not causing them a direct problem anymore. Whereas as a DM, you might be like, but that's something that I want to use. That's something that I want to have be part of this game. Quit screwing stuff up. And especially the one of the things that I think, I'm going to go on a little tangent here. One of the things that I think of when a lot of teams, when a lot of adventuring groups in D&D or something like that come together, is there's almost always at least one guy who's like, I'm gonna play the one that nobody trusts, and I'm gonna steal everybody's money, and I'm gonna be the snarky guy that when someone says something, I'm gonna say the opposite, or let's take him alive, let's throw him down a canyon shaft, or whatever. There's always that one player, and I guess if it's the character, and everybody's having fun playing around with this guy, even though like maybe they don't take him seriously. Maybe that he's constantly talking about I'll stab you all in your sleep. Okay, sure, Bill. There's that, and then there are the people that are actually legitimately going to be a problem, because they won't not be that adversary. They won't not get the opportunity to stab somebody, then they totally will. Or the first time that somebody has like a really cool magic item, they're like, oh, you're unconscious, I'm going to take it from you, and nobody saw it, and everyone's just got to be like, okay. It invites metagaming, and it invites hard feelings, and it invites if there's already strained relationships between some of the players, it's just going to make that worse. And again, I speak a lot about that in role playing, because with a role playing game, you tend to be very vocal, very interactive with each other, and you tend to do that for several hours at a time. For some board games, you might get that as well. Like, certain players just don't play well together. I harken back. I harken back to one of my best friends. He was the best man at my wedding, and a friend of ours, an ex gal of mine, that they did not get along. They got along. I shouldn't say that, because they got along in a way that, like, they could be in the same room together, they could be playing at the same table together, they could be playing the same game together, and everything would be just fine. Until until my friend Bryan would offer up to do something, or come up with an idea, or take the initiative in any capacity to do something or have something start. Guarantee, or if there was ever a part of a game that put like, you had to put your chosen emphasis on something, or I've got to vote for something or vote against something, you could almost guarantee that Tanya would do whatever it took to basically be the opposite or the rival of Bryan. Just every time. And it wasn't vice versa. Bryan was like, Bryan kept doing, he was like, why doesn't she like me? And Tanya's like, I like you just fine. But for whatever reason, when it came down to like actual thought processes, every single time Tanya would do something, Bryan would get the brunt end of it. Like, just Bryan would say A, Tanya would say B. Bryan would say white, Tanya would say black. And when you bring it around to him, you're like, why are you? You could look at Tanya and say, why are you being so contrary? And she'd be like, well, I'm not being contrary. It just happens to be that everything that he stands for, I'm on the opposite side in this particular instance. And we always thought it was the funniest thing. It was a dark funny. It was don't put those two at the same table. Guarantee they're not going to never put them on the same team. That's just mean spirited. But like, going forward, there were instances where it's like, that was almost a strategy during a game. Is, all right, Tanya's in a really strong position of power. I need to find a way to get her to flex on Bryan. Okay, cool. And you'd start to do something with Bryan, and specifically be like, all right, I vote for him, or I back his armies, or whatever, knowing that Tanya was going to do the opposite, and then take advantage of the fact that you just knew that. And what's funny is that when you ask her about it, even to this day, when you ask her about it, she does not understand where it came from. She doesn't know, like you could tell her, and unless it was something like the, I just was talking about like the game that is directly opposition. But if you actually just totally pointed it out to her, more often than not, she'd be like, nah, it's not like that. I support some of the stuff he does. And then you go, okay, when's the last time, the last 5 rounds, what have you done? But fought up against Bryan Martin. Exactly. So that was a nice friendly rivalry. They weren't like at each other's throats or anything. But then there is situations where, I'm not going to use names, but there are situations where I've got players in a game that I'm in, that one of which is just downright mean to the other for no reason, and it is uncomfortable. It is the kind of thing that you sort of, a snide comments get said, or something comes up, and all the rest of us in the digital room are like, okay, let's move on. Let's get past this weird tense moment of the two of them arguing. Or why would he say that? And then try and get the other guy's goat, and it's just, yeah. So jokingly calling this episode "Hate the Playa, Not the Game" is, or "Don't hate the play, I hate the game" is a way for me to say I don't even want you to hate the game, honestly. Like, it's just using a term phrase. But it is easier if you look at a particular situation, especially if it's a situation that you can't control during a game, is that rather than taking it out on one of your fellow players of, oh, you made a bad decision, or, oh, you got us in this fight that we can't get out of, or, oh, you opened the box to all the vampires and now our friends are almost dead. That last one hits close to home. But for all of that, you still want to come back to the game. Like, the last thing anybody wants, I would hope, is something so damaging to your desire to play that you walk away and be like, I never want to play that game again. Because there absolutely are games like that. There are several games that I've played that I go, that's not for me. Like, I'll get through it once and we'll hope for the best. But next time someone says I'm going to play that, probably going to bow out or see if there's something else that we can do. And that goes for all kinds of games: card games, board games, video games. Any sort of entertainment where you have to where you're choosing to give part of your time, part of your extra time and effort, and in the case of something like miniature games, some of your hobby time. All that stuff's finite. Like, you can't do 36 hours worth of stuff in a 24-hour day. Believe me, I wish I could. And what that means is, if you're devoting energy to this group, to this gaming event, if you're answering the host's call, or if you are the host, you're definitely putting it all out there. The last thing you want is a bunch of arguing and headbutting and snark and bad gameplay. It's tiresome. It's a pain. I'll share with you. It's one of the reasons why. So we are obviously a gamer household. There's no question. We have a lot of board games, a lot of card games. We play a lot of video games. But we try at least once every 2 weeks to get together and as a family and do like a card game or a board game or something like that. And we've got a couple of really good ones. I've mentioned a few here in the show. And in some instances, there have been times where it feels like people might be taking particular personal offense to things that are happening in the game. And I'm not going to name any names, and I'm not going to point fingers or say this person does it more than that person, or this person's constantly being targeted by both of these people, or anything like that. I'm just going to say that there have been times where the game ends, someone has won, everybody leaves the table, and it felt like a chore. It felt like, oh my god, I really wish we had more fun when we played our fun games, instead of trying to keep these two from ganging up on this one, and this one from reveling in the destruction of that one, and everybody's feelings getting hurt, and daddy feeling like, as a game designer, I could do better to make this game more more friendly to my family. So it happens at even the most, I don't want to say simplistic level, but I would call family game night a simplistic step into gamerhood, where you just got your family get together and play some cool games. And even then, that whole tension around the table rears its ugly head when you're supposed to be having a good time. Recently, I looked down the clock and I'm like, all right, I better start talking about the other topic about hate and playas. Peyton Playas, not the game. The internet. I'm sure most of you are like, oh. There is something about the anonymity of plugging away on the internet and talking to people on the internet that gives someone that extra bravado to say things that they might not necessarily say in person, whether they're just better people that, or if they're afraid that they're going to get clocked in the mouth because they say something. That's exactly that's exactly the issue that I think that you try to avoid by being on the other side of the keyboard. And a lot of times, in a lot of gaming forums or gaming groups, like Facebook groups, things like that, is that somebody will have an opinion, and that's all it is. And they'll mention an opinion. They'll say, "This is what I think," and then a lot of times you'll get 10 or 12 responses of either "I agree" or one of those, "Oh, I didn't know that." It's kind of a claiming neutrality. But the most of the time, you almost always get at least one or two people that are just so put back by your decision, by what you've said, that they've got to come in and they've got to comment on it. They've got to say something, and it makes me, these are all gamers. Especially if you're on, you're obviously not going to go to you're not going to become part of some fan group. Hopefully, you're not going to become some part of some fan group for a game you don't play, or for a game that you don't care about. Just because you want to run your mouth, just because you want to be mean, or maybe you want to know more about the game, or whatever it is. These gaming forums, or well, they used to be forums, and now it's like Facebook groups and Twitter chains and things like that. They have become like a digital version of the game store main room, your friendly local game store. We just hang out in the game store, even if you're not playing games, and just talk games. You talk about this, you talk about that. You'd say, "Oh, that rule's stupid," or "Oh man," for Magic players, they'd be like, "Why would you use that card?" Well, because it works really well with this card. There's a lot of debate, a lot of discussion, and that sort of stuff in the game store. And these Facebook groups, these Facebook chat rooms and Discord rooms and all that, they've kind of become, especially during this pandemic, they've kind of become the stand-in discussion area of a game store. And even in a normal situation, like at the game store, often you get people that'll be tell each other, "Oh, that's a dumb idea." That you might have some snark back and forth, but you're not going to get a lot of personal attacks, or at least you shouldn't. If not, someone's got probably temper issues. But like, the number of times you've seen people on internet forums that just give both barrels to somebody because they just don't agree with their interpretation of something, or they don't agree with their opinion about a model, or this particular card, I'm glad it's banned. "Oh, you're the worst. I have 4 of those cards in one of my decks." It's becomes so angry and targeted at your fellow gamer via the internet. And this last week, Twitter kind of had a little bit of explosion. Twitter had an explosion based on some. I'm not going to get into the specifics because I don't really want to. I could devote an entire episode to Gamergate and Comicsgate and all that garbage. There was some bad blood that erupted between a handful of pretty prominent personalities. And because they are prominent personalities, it also was their following. And when two followings clash, it's like West Side Story. You've got 200 deep Twitter followers, and then you get one or two people that come in and they're like, "Oh man, I'm gonna tell you what's up. I'm gonna pull this post apart and tell you everything that's wrong with it, and tell you that you're wrong, and no one should ever listen to you again." It gets nasty. And some of those Twitter Twitter tweets, some of those tweets, they got pretty mean. And at the end of the day, it was about some poor decisions made by people in the spotlight. And I guess my view on that, personally, is agree or disagree with the situation. I'm not going to step in on that because I'm not giving you the whole deal because I don't want to turn this conversation about the situation. But whether you agree or disagree with the situation, you can state your opinion. You can, even go to bat for someone who you feel is being victimized. But when you do that in an electronic format, in a digital chat room, so to speak, what you are doing is that you are taking a side in something that for some of these people, it's going to be a very heated argument. There's really no good way of saying, all right, I'm neutral, aside from just staying out of it. And I think that's one of the things that it does a lot of damage to the gamer psyche. Which I know I'm getting kind of deep here, but I think that there are a lot of gamers out there when they eventually get to a table or they eventually get to a game that's being hosted or something along those lines, and somebody has an issue or somebody is doing something wrong or questionable or whatever, we are so fast to go to jump to adversary instead of finding out more about the situation or possibly just informing the host, hey, this is kind of a weird thing. It becomes, well, you're doing this, you're the enemy. And I know I'm guilty of it. I 100% know I'm guilty of it. But it's the oh, you like this version of the game? Oh, you're so stupid. This version's so much better. Except at the end of the day, you guys are both playing a cool game and you should be smiling about it. It shouldn't be part of your weapon suite is the whether or not you like this game, check X, check no, my missiles will find you. It shouldn't be like that. It should just be a fact of whether or not you dig it, and and then we move on. And it is one of those things that I really do think that because people are spending more time on the internet, their gamers are spending a lot more time on chat rooms talking about the new games. We get reviews months in advance. The internet has really given a lot to game culture, Kickstarters and whatnot. Oh, that's a whole other animal. There's a whole other people that hating the player and the game are the people that hate on Kickstarter. they're a whole other animal. But it's so, I think that it becomes so easy to fall in with that mentality of that mentality of I'm right, you're wrong. There is no listening. And eventually when you get past that keyboard factor and into real life, for instance, if you get at the same game table with some of these guys, depending on what you've said, it may have left some scars, and they might remember that stuff. And when you go to play games with them, they may remember that and be like, okay, let's go ahead and make sure that this guy knows that he's in our turf now. He's not he's not going to be able to bring his trash talk here like he does on the internet. We're going to deal with him preemptively. It unnecessarily creates that adversarial tone or that adversarial theater. And I've said this a million times before, is gaming should be fun. Gaming should be about us having a good time. And rather, so as a host, as a DM, as a storyteller, as a host, the last thing you want to do is pick on somebody, is focus on a player and make them feel unwanted, whether it's for whatever reason, you know, especially because when it comes to gaming like that, if you're the host, you're in a position of power, and I don't mean that like ultimate power. I mean like you're the one that's kind of running the show, which means if someone is not on your side in a topic or in a situation or in a rules discussion or something like that, it's probably gonna fall back on you to be the one that's correct, just for simple majority rule, or simple the fact that this is your house, this is your game, this is if it's in the case of a storyteller or a dungeon master or something, this is your arc. The player isn't going to be able to run away with it because you're running the show. And I think that we have a responsibility when you're a dungeon master, when you're a host of a game, you have a responsibility of making sure that the people that are playing together are playing. I don't want to say playing nice because makes me seem like you should have a babysitter there. That's not the case, but it does mean that maybe if things start to get a little out of hand, as the host, you step in and go, "All right, everybody, this topic's a little hot. We're either going to switch topics or let's just be done for the night, and we'll meet back here, next week, same time or whatever." You got to be able to take control of the situation and hopefully avoid people having permanent permanent behavioral scars. There have been times in other games where I've seen someone get up and walk away from the game because they're so mad at the other player or players that they're just done, and they're like, "I quit. I'm out. See you later. Peace out." And what that does is, not only does it cause a super tense moment during your gaming session, but depending on if it's a board game where that person has a bunch of like territories or something, what do you do? They left. Do you parcel them out? Do they just all go away? Do all of those little aliens just vanish and now it's half of space is available to you? In the case of a card game, it probably ruins the whole game. Because now your number of draws, the cards that you can have, that stuff's all messed up because the player just got left or decided to leave. And then in an absolute worst case, in a role playing game where someone's like, "I'm done, peace out," unless you can really think on your feet as a game master, or as a game master you don't really plan in the first place, everything's on the seat of your pants, then what you've got is you've got this sort of chaotic whole that now you've got to figure out how to make work, whether it's you bend the story, whether or not you just look at everybody and suspend disbelief and say, just ignore the fact he got on his horse and rode away. But I would stop him. Yeah, don't, because the player's not coming back, or something along those lines. You still have the responsibility to try and make some kind of sense out of what's happening, and that's collectively why I feel that if you've got beef with another character, or you're your host or whatever, or another character, another player, or your host, is that maybe you try and be the bigger person and you talk to them about it. You maybe do your best to alleviate whatever tension is there. And if they just, it's just too much, and they can't handle it, they've got to go or whatever, or they're constantly sniping at somebody else. You've got to, as the host, you've got to be able to take care of your table. You got to make sure that everybody's having a good time, and if one person is there ruining everybody else's good time because they're an internet meanie, or they're the one person who believes this dramatically different setup, then maybe you talk to that person and go, "All right, I don't know if you realize this, but you try and do your best. You try and do your best to make sure that everybody around your table is at least entertained. Can't necessarily say happy. Hopefully they'd be happy, but at least entertained. And that you're making forward in the case of a role playing game, you're making forward progression in your stories and stuff. In the case of board games and stuff, everybody's having a good time. Nobody's cheating. Everybody's looking to try and get to the victor of the board game, whatever that is, or everybody loses depending on the game. That's what I'm getting at, is that it's okay to not like a situation or something that's happened during a game, but just you got to try to keep all of that extra stuff out. Keep it away from the table. Keep it out of your internet. Don't lay down that nasty gram because someone disagrees with you. Instead, just maybe do a little meditation or write it down on a piece of paper and then throw it away. Get it out, get that poison out of your heart. But don't take it out on your fellow gamer. Don't take it out at the people around your table, because that's actually going to hurt everybody, not just you, and not just them. You might be thinking you're sticking it to them, but it's going to hurt everybody in the long run, especially you, because other players might see that and go, "Why would you do that? Why are you being like that?" And well, my character hates his character. It says right here. I don't think that's the case. There's no rule that said that has to happen. You've decided to do that happen because you and he aren't currently getting along. It's just it's too easy to blame the game when you've decided that you're upset with another player or the host. And I think the biggest thing that needs to happen is the ability to self-regulate. And I say that insofar that, like, instead of blowing up and screaming at people, it's weigh the situation, figure out what's the plus and minuses. It might take you a little longer, it might take you a little brain power, but at the end of the day, you want to make sure that everybody around your table is still having a good time, including yourself. And often that takes a little extra work, depending on what we're talking about as far as like the actual table being played. Is it a board game, card game, or whatever? It's going to take a little extra work to make sure everybody gets along, hopefully. And if it's a one-off thing, and there is somebody who isn't having a good time, and they need to bounce, you figure it out. But hopefully, be able to keep yourself positive, keep yourself thinking in that upward way, and my players are having a good time, I'm having a good time, they're enjoying each other's company, I'm enjoying their company. This is a time well spent. That's the whole point. So until next week, don't forget to like, comment, share, all the stuff that you're supposed to do. Pay attention to the links and stuff in the descriptions, and go out there, be safe, wear a mask, and what do I always say? Oh yeah, play some games. See you next week.